Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Lau Kar-leung's The 36th Chamber of Shaolin from 1978. So yes, here we are, back again, and this time a martial arts film to talk about here. And yes indeed, something that I watched for the first time a few days ago, and yes, it's just something that I wanted to do. I've been watching a few martial arts films recently, and I wanted to kind of make this more of a at least now and then kind of thing. Maybe preferably a regular kind of thing. Watching just a variety of martial arts films. I have seen some definitely over the years, but mainly as a kid. I did watch more, and I want to kind of do this again. I can't remember exactly which ones I watched as a kid, but it certainly includes some for example Jackie Chan films. But hopefully when I go back to these, it will come back to me, so I can kind of give my thoughts on what ones I watched as a kid, for example. But I watched a few, and yes. This is a film, very interesting, and there will be spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen this film, certainly recommend this one, especially if you're a fan of action films, martial arts. But I guess a lot of people have seen this one, that are at least if you've seen martial arts films, quite a few. This is one of the more popular ones. It's very very respected, and it's kind of part of this trilogy. All three of these films star Gordon Liu. He's a very very famous, he's a respected, martial arts actor, and he's maybe not as well known, as some, but he was, because his first American film, was the Kill Bill films actually, so that's very interesting, of course. Johnny Moe, in Kill Bill 1, and then he played Pai Mei, in Kill Bill 2, so that's that's great, of course, and that's these two roles are so different but so great, both of them. He kind of played in them films, but he's been in quite a few martial arts films over the years and stuff. And yes, this trilogy has him in all these films, playing a role, and in this film he is our main protagonist. It's kind of based based off of this real life individual Sante, this monk, eventual Sante. Of course, his name is different at first, but he becomes Sante, known to be. And yes, this is a film that I watched, as I say, a few days ago now, and I really wanted to talk about this and a few films I've watched. I've watched Return to the 36th Chamber, actually, which is one of the films in this kind of trilogy. But I also watched Bloodsport and Five Element Ninjas, which is a film that I really really liked as well. But this one, I'll say it now, this is the best that I've watched over this kind of week or so, watching martial arts films again, and this is the one that I really, I really loved, and I was really so impressed by it, and it just kind of cheered me up and stuff, and really, I was just so invested in this. It's kind of this, of course, this kind of brutal general is this kind of the villain, of course. And at first, as we know, this being a spoilers review, but yes, as we know, he is the one that really kind of leads this this kind of massacre. And of course, Sante is a student, and he becomes involved in this kind of rebellion. But yes, him and his friend try to reach this temple to learn kung fu, of course, properly learn kung fu, and because his father, Sante's father, is killed, in the kind of in the process of this, and that kind of leads him to kind of his acts of vengeance, perhaps, but it's more than that. And yes, eventually reaching this temple, but his friend is killed before that, which is I found very sad. But it's a film that, for the rest of the film, really is showing this training, of this character, but it really, to call it a training sequence, is certainly inaccurate, because this is kind of our main narrative, kind of progression here. This is the journey of Sante, and his becoming, this kind of kung fu expert, is the kind of main bulk of the film, and before that is the build-up, of course, and the setting up the motives, the kind of the initial spark, and the kind of the reason for him wanting to become a kung fu expert and join this temple. But then, of course, the final act is him returning into the into the outside world, and then, of course, recruiting different members, students, of course, perhaps, and he eventually, as we know, forms the 36th chamber, because, of course, originally in this temple there's only 35 chambers, so that's a really interesting way, kind of exciting way in which the film is called the 36th chamber of Shaolin. Originally there's 35, and of course he's not allowed to create another one, but then of course he does eventually effectively create the 36th chamber, and that's when he is, in the end of the film, as we know, a teacher, a master of kung fu, and he's got his own students, and that wonderful, kind of ended shot, the freeze frame there. But yes, I've noticed, quite a few, kind of things about these films, I really, really like, and a few things that are very, very interesting. But the ending to a lot of these kind of Shaw Brothers films are very, very, cut off, maybe, very abrupt. It's very. You could say some of them are kind of maybe throwaway. But this is the one that, despite it being maybe kind of abrupt, in some ways, I do think it kind of comes together in such a great way, and it kind of brings the character, the narrative arc, of this character full circle, and actually, the ending shot is actually, the freeze frame, at least, is actually very meaningful and I think epic. And this is a film, I must say, that I loved, from start to finish. Really, it's a film. I think it has flaws, but and maybe things that don't allow this to be, quite a masterpiece for me. But I think this film is just great. It really, really is. I loved it. I think, it really is. It's such a well-made film. The obvious, thing being, these Shaw Brothers films, I believe at least most of them, is that they're interestingly, and I think, very interestingly, they were recorded without any sound, at all. So, there's not officially really an original recorded language to these films. That's why, one of the reasons why I chose the English dubbing. Of course, I don't usually do this at all. If there is an option, for example, anime films, I can't watch, the English dubbing, and I would never want to, out of many reasons. I love the original, for example, Japanese, audio to them and stuff. But this film and many of these different films, don't have technically an original recorded language. So I chose the English one, English dubbing here, and another reason it's really hilarious, to see this. And I think, this is definitely, these films are not meant to be taken fully seriously, in terms of the dubbing and stuff. It kind of just adds to the campy charm, I feel, and just the enjoyability of this. It's I definitely think, certainly in some of the other ones, there's definitely bad, quite bad, laughable dubbing, but it kind of, as I say, adds to the kind of innocence, the kind of the charm to it, and just the the humour to the film, actually. So I chose to watch these films, all of these ones that I watched recently, Shaw Brothers films, kind of in the English dubbing, and it's definitely, as I say, it's very, very flawed, and it's not great dubbing in that sense, but so many films aren't as well, so it's kind of, it doesn't really bother me too much. It's just one of the trademarks. I've heard that they'd make so many films, produce many films within a set year, and this is one of the reasons that they did acquire these films over such a short time period, really, because they were very easy to make in this department, for example. And yes, you've got of course, moments of hilarious kind of these dubbing moments, but after a while, you kind of get immersed in this kind of wacky sense of just over the top kind of dialogue, and the acting at times from some of the other side characters mainly is not great, but actually this is overall got some really good acting, and Gordon Liu is absolutely outstanding in this film, in my opinion. He is actually a great actor in this, and overall he's so good. And I think this film, he is the standout. He is not giving a bad performance here. He is amazing in this film, and I think just what's so great about this film is the kind of, yes, the progression of this character. To Sante. As we see him over the film. Becomes this character. He really embodies this kind of transformation. This is, of course, over a number of years meant to be in the film, and these different chambers. In this film, we see round about 10 of these kind of 35 originally anyway chambers. And of course our character, our main protagonist, he's taking part in these. He's going through these training sequences, and the different variations of these chambers. It's so exciting. It's constantly kind of hilarious, but something I got so invested in, seeing the progression of this character physically and mentally, and spiritually as well. That's one of the things it captures us so well, is the kind of the spirit of martial arts, and it's just so interesting, but really emotional at times, but definitely kind of fully investing in the way that it's doing this, and the variation, the moments he's kind of headbutting these sandbags. It's really insane. The physicality of this performance by Gordon Liu is staggering, and he's just so believable. At first, he's kind of this maybe weaker, physically character, one who's naive perhaps, one who's headstrong, but then he becomes, he really commits to this role, and I think it's one of the best kind of action film performances really that I've seen, certainly in a while, and he just commits to this role so wonderfully, and this character is so great. He's such a great character, and I just love the kind of the way in which it progresses, and you see him conquering these challenges. At first, there's quite a lot of doubting this character. He's dismissed. He isn't taken seriously. But then he emerges as kind of they kind of say he's the fastest kind of progressing student here. In the way he kind of ranks up perhaps throughout this temple, and I just love seeing this kind of progression. Of course, this film is mainly about that. It's mainly, as I say, showing the training sequences. Really kind of fully showing martial arts, kung fu in this way, and I just loved it for that. Some films, maybe it's maybe 10 minutes of a film, but this is at least kind of half of the film. Is this actually showing fully showing these sequences, and the kind of the ways in which this character is struggling throughout, spiritually as well as physically, as I say, and I just love this kind of balance here, the kind of humanity of it, the kind of spiritual feeling, and just showing this, really brutal, undergoing here, and I think, the way the film is shot is amazing. It really is. I love the crash zooms. I love the kind of, really gritty, some would call it cheap, but it doesn't look cheap. It's one of them films. It's low budget kind of stuff, but it's gritty, and it's kind of really, it's got a lot of kind of intensity to it, but it doesn't feel cheap. Really, it's because it's so well done. I love the kind of raw colours to this film, and the raw kind of look to it. The grit to it, and just the way in which it's kind of bare bones at times, but these crass zooms, these kind of the way in which the film is edited, and the way that the film is framed is actually really stunning. The fight scenes, of course, many people watch martial arts films, mainly for the fight scenes, the kind of the choreography, and stuff. But let me tell you, this film has remarkable fight choreography. It really is stunning, and that is something that is so well balanced once again. And when it is there, it's absolutely epic. It really is stunning. Cinema. It's some of the best action, hand to hand, and just fight choreography that I've seen really in a while. And I think Gordon Liu is just so talented. Here really is just he masters this, as I say, this physical side to this character, and including these fight scenes. They are just so investing, believable. At times also over the top, and kind of this campy nature to the film. in the fight scenes. And I think again, this wonderful kind of combination. I love these over the top scenes. In these films that I've been seeing, and Bloodsport. Again, that's another one that I saw. As I said, and that is so over the top. But this one kind of has more of a kind of a grounded, perhaps realistic feel to the fun, kind of the fight scenes. But it has this kind of fantastical, kind of and campy nature to the fight scenes as well. So it's kind of this real, this really wonderful balance, I feel. And I just not much more to say. I love the music in the film as well. I love the kind of a lot of the dialogue actually is really, really great. For what this is trying to be, and it's a film that, it's very humorous at times, but a lot more kind of investing and serious, taken seriously than I thought it would be. It's something that actually, it really is one of these martial arts films that really commits to the kind of the investment, I feel. And I think, the film has flaws, and the film has things that I think detracted from being kind of reaching this maybe masterpiece status. But it is a great film, in my opinion. I loved really everything about the film, in some way, at least. And I think it takes a while to really maybe 10 minutes or so to kind of come into the full potential of what the film remains as. But it's still, I loved every moment really, more or less. And I think there's so much in this to love. It's definitely just a great film in my opinion. And as I say, it is flawed at times, but none of these flaws really massively, majorly kind of detract from my enjoyment of the film. And I just really had a great time with this. I loved it, and I think it's definitely one of the best martial arts films that I've seen. That's for sure. And I don't claim to have seen hundreds or anything like that, but I've seen quite a few. Some I can't, as I say, I can't recall exactly. But certainly I've seen quite a few. This is definitely one of the best I have seen, and I'd say if you haven't seen the film, I would recommend it highly. It's a really a great film, and I had a great time with this one. And it's so investing. It's so fun. It takes itself seriously, but it's not one that takes itself too seriously. And yes, just a great martial arts film, and one that I really loved, really from the get-go. So overall, I think I'd have to give this film a 90%. So yes, indeed, that's a very, very high score for me. I loved this film. I really, really did, and I'd certainly recommend it to anyone really that kind of likes action films in general, not just kind of martial arts. Kind of enthusiasts. I really think this is a great film overall, and I think this could increase, maybe a little on a rewatch or so. But for now, I think 90% is a kind of an accurate, score based on this. It's not. I don't at the moment feel it's higher than that. In terms of the overall quality of the film. Just some things that could have been better. Don't quite reach this kind of masterful level. And I think a few flaws here and there. Some of the acting isn't great. Of course the dubbing. While it does add to enjoyability, it's also some flaws as well in that. But I think this film overall, so investing. The action in the film is just so well done. It's so much fun. There's so much greatness here, and I think Gordon Liu gives a stunning performance. He really does. The kind of believability of his transformation from this kind of maybe inexperienced and naive young man to this kind of real master of fighting here. Kung fu expert, and the way he kind of forms this 36th chamber in the end is something that I love to see. I didn't think the film would end quite like that, but it did. It had me kind of really satisfied. This is one of them real satisfying martial arts films actually, and I thought there was a few things here and there flawed in the film, but again, it didn't really hinder my enjoyment too much. I think it's just a film that doesn't quite as I say, go to that masterpiece status, but there's a few things you could call by me masterful, including Gordon Liu. I really think he was great in this film, and yes, as always, I can't wait to see more from him, and of course, who knows? I might review some other films, in this kind of 36th Chamber series. I could review the other two in this, but there are kind of spin-offs, perhaps of this kind of this film here. But I certainly will be reviewing some more martial arts films over time, and it's just a case of kind of prioritizing the different reviews that I want to upload. Kind of balancing out this and that, but. I do plan to review some more, Shaw Brothers films for sure, and martial arts films in general. This is a very, very interesting period, of cinema here, and I think it just adds for kind of, this enjoyability. That it's so kind of, it's campy, it's over the top, of course, but it really is quite special at times when done like this, and I think this is just a great film in my opinion, one that I loved really from the beginning, you could say, and I just got so invested in this. It was very satisfying, just seeing these creative ways in which these this training is kind of shown, the way it's revealed to us, the way that the character is constantly kind of struggling with this, these sequences, of course, these obstacles, and it's also linked to the kind of the original, act of vengeance. That he kind of goes to this temple, and the way it kind of sets that up, it's just so effective, and the way it comes together, as I say, it's just so satisfying to see, and yes, just a highly enjoyable film, one that really is motivational, inspirational film as well, at the same time as being this, kind of over the top at times, action film, the dubbing, of course, I really had a good time with the kind of the English dubbing here. It's not great, in the traditional sense or anything like that, but I did, I can't deny that I did have fun with that kind of aspect of the film as well, and it's something that as I say, I don't normally do, but I think this is kind of, it's one of them exceptions, with these types of films, where there is often no original kind of recorded dialogue, no language originally, kind of recorded. So I kind of just, you can kind of take it as you want, and I think the English dubbing, is the one that I chose, and I had a very good time with that. It's, of course, it's not great, in my opinion, but yes, overall it is a great film, and great, highly entertaining, kind of martial arts film, and it's a great film to see. Yes, really feel good film, very grueling, in the way that it's kind of shown, the real extreme and raw kind of way in which this training is done, but it's just very, very charming as well at the same time, and just very, in the end, inspirational. So yes, as always, tell me your thoughts. If you've seen this film, of course, tell me what you think, and yes, if you haven't seen it, I'd certainly recommend it. It's a great film actually. I would probably say, to kind of start, martial arts kind of films. If you haven't really seen any of these kinds of films, I think this would be a great way to kind of start, kind of venturing into this area of cinema. Of course, there's so many, there's hundreds, of course, but this is definitely one of the the best I've seen personally, and I loved the film overall. And yes, as always, thanks for watching, and as always, thanks for the support. For everyone who's watching my videos and everything, and yes, take care, stay safe, and hopefully, yes, I look forward to reviewing more films, of course, as always, and discussing with you, viewers, of course, anything cinema related, really. And yes, tell me your thoughts. It'd be great to hear what you think of this film. Please don't hesitate to kind of comment, on this film in particular, or just, yes, as I say, any film, anything you kind of want to talk about, in the comment section. But yes, with that said, as always, thanks for watching.